name is Elliot Moscowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Prairie Street.co. Today we're taking a walk down Prairie Street with my special guest, Rivky Kleiman. Thank you very much for joining us. If you don't know Rivky is a very famous chef. She started with the Beis Yaakov cookbook, which became a classic, several 100,000 of these. Rivky, show that one, that's beautiful. Then there was the Beis Yaakov cookbook number 2 that came out. Then she realized that, why do I need to collaborate with other people when I'm doing most of the work? So here we have Simply Gourmet. That's your first standalone
That's my first standalone work, absolutely.
Book. As you know, here at the Culinary Kitchen, we're avid collectors of cookbooks and chefs, but these are some of our favorites. Then, of course, to follow up, another Simply, but this is more minimalist. It's not Simply Gourmet, it's just Simply. You had too many words in the last one. Unbelievable. And then as a collaboration, she was invited to be with other prominent chefs in Best of Kosher. So sounds like you're very well versed and deep into the kosher cookbook and education business. So on this channel we have many types of chefs that work with us and that we collaborate. We collaborate with chefs that travel all over the world. They're global road warriors and they cook for wealthy families all over the world. And then we have our educators and we have the people that cross. And you're clearly in the education game. You're not catering or running someone in a villa or taking care of that. Your job is
Correct.
To teach people, right?
Correct. I taught for 20 years. And after that, I continued teaching, but in a different way.
Right. And that's a challenge for all of us as the technology changes and everything is, what is the best method of communicating? But how did you get into this whole thing, starting with the Beis Yaakov cookbook? What was the genesis of that?
So what began my career in cookbook writing was I had taken a sabbatical from teaching. And honestly, I thought it was going to be 1 year. We were building a house. And I happened to have gone out with one of my daughters one day and someone met me and she goes, so, how's the sabbatical going? Do you think you're ever going back? And my daughter was like, no, Mommy, I'll pay you to stay home. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, was I such a bad mom that she'll pay me to stay home? I always thought I was so hands-on. And it really set me thinking. After our house was built, I got 4 phone calls offering me new jobs in different teaching settings, and each of them started me off either very early in the morning or ended off later on in the evening after my children were home. And I was like, this is just not what I was looking to do. I wanted to send my children off. I wanted to take them and be there to welcome them when they came home. And all of a sudden, right after those 4 phone calls, which I declined, I got a phone call from a young lady whose father owned the School of Beis Yaakov in Chicago and said, we've been by some parties that you've done, and we kind of get the feeling that you're very familiar and know your way around the kitchen. Would you like to join us and embark upon a mammoth project to make a cookbook? And I'm like, yes, that sounds like what I want to do now. And so the Beis Yaakov was our baby. After about 8 months of eating, sleeping, breathing Beis Yaakov, the work stands for itself. It has sold over 350,000 copies to date.
Wow, that's amazing. So I'm probably one of the first men you've ever met that actually went to Beis Yaakov of Chicago, because at the time, that's what our school was called until all of us realized we were being humiliated all over the world because Beis Yaakovs were girls' schools, and 20 years later they realized they should change the name. So I'm from Chicago, and definitely this was a popular thing. And what was that experience like? Was it terrifying, nerve-wracking, exciting all at the same time?
It was exhilarating, it was educational, it was fun. I loved going down to the city and working with world-famous photographers. I learned so much about that. It was so beautiful how it was literally a collaboration of worldwide Beis Yaakov sending in their best recipes. It was going through them, testing them, doctoring them, and then of course filler-inning of lots of your family faves, which is what Beis Yaakov 1 is all about, my family faves. You see a lot of my mom's, my sisters, my sister-in-laws, my aunts, a little bit of everybody in there as well.
And that's what we try to do at Prairie Street Culinary Kitchen. We're educating in a, let's say, in a different technology era where people learn information more than just reading, even though we like to read a lot, but there's so much information, there's so much technology, and we're trying to educate at all different levels. So it's been great having you the last couple of days here filming with us on set, outside and inside. And when you get a master teacher to educate you, they're able to teach concepts. To me is much more important. We were talking about this over the weekend than recipes. I mean, we're all in situations that we're out of time, or something failed, or something didn't work out, and how can we mix and match different methods or things that we can to use it instead of necessarily having to follow a recipe from beginning to end. So when you were transitioning from obviously the Beis Yaakov books, which were more of a collaborative editing role in figuring out and testing, and then you had to embark on your own cookbook, what were some of the guidelines that you set for yourself of what this book was about? I'm sure it wasn't, what can I think of, any recipe I think of. There was probably some guiding light that took you through that. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So I always felt, like you said, necessity is the mother of all invention. And very often you do a dish, you fall on your face, but you gotta stand up, brush yourself off, and start again. I felt like we were a little bit at a crossroad where gourmet, everybody loves to go out, everybody loves to be pampered, but you know what? You can do it in your own home, and you can be a gourmet as well. And that was my goal, to show everybody it's really not that difficult, and to try to simplify, because as time goes on, and as you described, technology becoming more and more prevalent, we want to do things faster, and we want to get to sit down, but we still want that our end result should be as fantastic as if we spent a long time. So I think kind of my goal was to kind of fake it till you make it, but really serve gourmet dinners.
And one of the things that we've tried to do to stand out is, yes, technique is super important, but the first thing that counts the most is what is the product that you're starting with. And you could have the fanciest cookbooks and methods, but if you start with lower quality products to begin with, you could maybe upgrade them a little, but it's not the same as you had to experience the last couple of days of starting with something that's great quality, and then you're taking it into the stratosphere. And the point also, what I like about your books is some authors, I mean, I have like about 200 cookbooks, some authors on purpose want to make it as complicated as possible because to them it shows that they're so smart and capable. And I think you have lots of wisdom in your cookbooks, but teaching is all about taking complicated subjects and simplifying them. It's not to make them more complicated so people could get confident, do it. And don't you find, like with people that you talk to or work to, people tend to stay in a certain lane that they're comfortable with. And when they break out and they have like a new dish that they didn't know and they tried it 4 or 5 times and they're now ready to serve it to guests, they feel like so proud that they've broken out of that zone. So how's your experience been in taking people to the other side of things that they've been doing the same thing for 20 years? So first of all, thank you. I really appreciate that you actually saw what my goal is as you perused the cookbook. I really wanted... More than peruse, I read. I like that. I happen to read my books like novels as well. I'm talking about any cookbook. But honestly, I do think it's so important. Many people, for whatever reason, really like to just follow exactly what they're told.
And every once in a while, you open your pantry and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I don't have brown sugar. Or, oh my gosh, I don't have milk. And you'll find through my book, I tried very hard to use pantry staples, but at the same time, I really tried to give you a little bit of an education as to substitutions, something that you can use in lieu just in case you don't have it. Or at the same time, I also very much tried throughout my cookbook to give you various methods. For example, we shot an overnight meat roast. But let's say you don't have, your company is coming in 4 hours. Guess what? We showed you how you can do it both ways. And that's something that I think is very important and something that I see that you are spending so much time and energy in the education in your Prairie Street Culinary Kitchen.
That's what we try to do. We try to mix methods and chefs to come up with a certain matrix of any area that you're comfortable with. Like, for instance, you know, all of a sudden you're jammed up and you're out of time, we'll mix it, we'll sous vide something, we'll smoke it at the end, like, you know, or I invite a famous chef like you to come over for Shabbat meal and was so focused on the main courses that I didn't make any side dishes for you, though. A little embarrassing.
They were great.
But that's what that is like, okay, we now have these tools, and I think people do tend to stick to their own lane, but when they could break out, and there is, and in this case, technology has made many things much easier. And sous vide, in the sense that it made people capable of cooking large pieces of meat and not necessarily undercooking it or overcooking it, that they at least had a starting point for doing that. And that's why we do recipes indoors, outdoors, all over the place, and whatever you're comfortable with. Well, obviously you have too much time on your hands because you're only writing cookbooks and lecturing and teaching and demos, that you said, what should I do in those other times, and why don't I start a super high-end spice company continuing the Simply stratosphere? So.
Yep, well, the Simply Gourmet was definitely something that we wanted to, again, do as our outreach and our education to everybody, but this really simplified life. I have to be honest, a few of my children had said to me after the cookbook came out, like, Mom, they are so good, you've got to just bottle it. And we're like, yeah, but who has the time? And my oldest son was like, I do. And I'm so proud. Together we built this company, Recipe in a Bottle. It's an entirely new concept. We're not just a spice company where it happens to be our spices are premium sourced from all over the world. We were not okay to just give you anything mediocre. And that comes through from your first open. You know, sometimes you do a scratch and sniff. I mean, give a whiff.
Amazing.
It's off the charts. So we happen to have at this point 5 different flavors. We also have, if you want, this was a great collaboration where we collaborated with Crown Maple, who is known for their premium quality. They specially actually curated for me a bourbon barrel maple syrup. Let me tell you something, your life is not going to be the same, okay? This is the type of maple syrup where, like, you're thinking to yourself, drink maple syrup? You take one little spoon, put it into your coffee, it's going to change your life. It's going to change the way you ever sweeten your coffee. It is so good that if you put a little bit into a little shot glass and take a little swig, it is fantabulous. Then imagine cooking your meat, just topping it off. You made your steak, kosher salt and pepper very often is all that you need. Or you can use a recipe in the bottle where, again, we're not overwhelming you with too many flavors. And then hit it with a little splash, OMG. And then our final and brand new collaboration is with Atlas Oil, where most people who know me, I usually would say use extra light olive oil. And you know what? The reason for that was because the olive oil had an aftertaste. But when you're working with premium olive oil, you can just dip your piece of bread into it. If you want, you can mix a little bit this would actually be great, the lemon garlic fusion, or a little bit of like the chili lime, which you have over there, which is also outrageous. Mix it with a little bit of olive oil. Dip your bread in, your sourdough in, OMG. You want to make a garlic confit? Same thing. Oh my gosh. So we try.
It's excellent, and I think we're talking about maybe having some smaller packs that people can make as they buy their meat from us. Can I see that maple bottle again there?
Absolutely.
So, I don't know, we had Simchat Torah, it's a happy holiday last week, usually, despite the events. I could have sworn I saw a bunch of the guys holding this, but it had real bourbon in it. I'm not sure, but I have a feeling you have two versions.
It's possible.
But look at this. Look also at this packaging that it comes with. It's just amazing. So that's amazing that you, and oh look, you put your signature on that. That's super cool. And so how did you find this experience? Because that's what we're working on too, is the consistent quality, and packaging is very important to us, especially
Absolutely,
when you're selling.
that is so key, and that is something that you are definitely accomplishing. Definitely accomplishing.
So what was your experience like getting our meat compared to what you've seen in general?
When we did our first photo shoot, I honestly wasn't sure what I was in for, gonna be honest. We sliced into that standing rib roast, and it was like, it was just outstanding. It was the softest, unbelievable piece of meat that you didn't have to chew. It just kind of like, it was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. It was so good that in fact I ordered one for my holiday meal.
I know that, and I appreciate that. And you know, we only use the finest American sources. We don't import any meat from Central or South America or from Canada. We just go for the best and consistent quality, and now dry age is becoming a big product line for us, and
Wow.
I think that's a major game changer, because you really, when you take out some of that moisture of the product, figuring out the correct amount of days to dry age it is a thing in itself. But I don't think the religious Jews have really seen or experienced really good dry age. So if you go too overboard, they'll think it tastes like blue cheese. They're not familiar with that. I mean,
And that smell can also be a little bit overwhelming
Yeah,
if
so
you're
we
not
want-
ready for it.
right, so we figured out the right amount of days that work for that. So what's next? I mean, it sounds like my impression of you spending the weekend together was you never rest on your laurels. So there's got to be another project in your head.
Right now, we're just enjoying, definitely trying to work on growing our Simply Gourmet recipe in a bottle, and to grow our collaborations. So for right now,
Another
I'm
cookbook,
good.
you thinking about that, or?
You never know. Keep tuned.
So how did you find, though, when did you start the Beis Yaakov cookbooks? When did that start?
The Beis Yaakov cookbook probably happened about 13 years ago, 14 years ago, I would
So
say.
how would you compare education of writing in a book? Obviously, the photography is excellent in all your work, and we care very much about production here. I mean, you see
Absolutely.
what our stuff
It was
looks like,
so obvious.
that we care a lot about that. But how do you find the education aspect of moving when the world's moving, when people younger consume information in a different way? Do you enjoy it more on a video standpoint because you feel you could reach out to them, or it's too complicated compared to cookbooks? How do you like that?
Honestly, that was a very good question. I kind of still read a real book. Like, I haven't gone to the Kindle. I definitely like a physical book in front of me. I love cookbooks. I love videos. So honestly, I love that the technology is moving along with us. I love that. And I think that educating is very important. In a way, films are a little bit easier for you to just kind of talk, and if you don't get it, you can kind of get your idea through as you continue to talk. Where I feel like in a physical cookbook, the key is to minimize your words, but pack a punch and make sure that you get your idea and your thought process across as clearly as possible.
I always find it at this day when people come out with cookbooks and they don't have an image for every recipe, like
that's almost like non-existent anymore.
It's almost like non-existent. Like
correct.
You can relate to anybody, and you know, for us, we want to show the finished product, but we also want to show the raw product, because you could see companies that will take the meat and they'll drown it in sauces or rubs or stuff like that to almost hide the inferior quality of that product here right now. So we try to show you, and the photos on our website, so when you get our products and you compare them to that photos and at marbling, you see that that's consistent, and that's the most important part. That's the most important part of our whole project, is consistent quality.
And then my job is to make sure that when you actually make the recipe, it looks the same as the image that we sent you.
Right, and also your job is to make people comfortable and make that simpler and easy for them. And I guess
correct.
That's why the Shorish, the root word of all your products, is simply, because that's what you're really doing. And a good educator, my parents were educators, principals that come from a big Chabad family. Anybody that's in the teaching game, the real challenge, and I think, and the real skill is being able to take extremely complicated things and making people confident and feel simple, and that they could do that, test it, do it again, fine-tune, test it. And it's not meant to be a science. It's really more of a balance between art, science, and personal taste at the same time.
Correct. And bring everybody into their own comfort zone.
And I think also the other big aspect is that when you make this super high quality food, it brings a reason to bring people together, right?
Absolutely.
And you know, I've never appreciated Shabbat as much as I have doing this project, when you're working around the clock, that it forces you to stop in a certain way. And it
correct.
Forces you to be able to say, hey, we could sit, we could talk, we could spend quality time without someone's phones ringing and things like that. So, you know, in these disturbing and difficult times all over the world, the only thing we could do is think of all our fellow Jewish people and all the world that's supporting us during these times, and the rough times that the people in Ukraine and other parts of the world are going through. And we should appreciate what we have, and to be, you know, dedicated, and what can we do to give back. That's why right now we're giving back like 10% of all our sales to Israel.
Oh, and that's so beautiful.
But I think in general, it's time, effort, and it's concern. It's not always money or physical things. It's just that there's much more in life to work together with than to fight about. And so I've been very blessed to have a whole weekend with you and spend time with you on camera here. Last 2 days you were magnificent. We're going to miss you going back to New York, or Lakewood, Ira Kodesh, but I have a feeling we'll be seeing you again down here in the near future. So thank you very, very much. It was beyond amazing to have you on set. Everybody of our team loved working with you, and I'm sure our audience will appreciate everything you've contributed so far.
Thank you so much, and likewise. What a beautiful experience.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a safe trip back, and we'll catch you guys next time. It's Sunday at 2 o'clock. Check us out, prairiestreet.co, and you'll see all our content there as well. Thank you, and have a great day.